The Cleveland Browns are sitting on a gold mine, but somehow the man who signs the checks seems ready to throw it away before it even gets a chance to shine. In a league where every team is desperate for a quarterback, where careers rise and fall on one arm, the Browns might have accidentally stumbled onto the steal of the decade. Yet in classic Cleveland fashion, instead of celebrating it, they're turning it into chaos. In a stunning twist, Browns owner Jimmy Haslam has confirmed that the trade rumors swirling around rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders are real. Not speculation, not some blogger's invention, real. That single admission has set the NFL rumor mill into overdrive, because if Sanders is actually available, you can bet half the league is picking up the phone right now. But before we talk about who might come calling, let's start with why this situation is even happening. Because when you peel back the layers, you realize this isn't just about football, it's about power, politics, and ego. GM Andrew Berry was the man who pulled the trigger on draft day. He saw something in Shedeur that most teams overlooked. The poise, the accuracy, the calm under pressure. Sanders had been battle-tested in college, carrying massive expectations on his shoulders and thriving in hostile environments. He wasn't supposed to slide all the way into the 5th round, but he did. And Berry pounced, calling it one of the smartest, lowest-risk, highest-reward picks of his tenure. But here's the problem. Haslam never signed off. He wasn't on board with Sanders from the start. And in the NFL, when the billionaire owner doesn't believe in a player, that player's leash is razor thin no matter how well he performs. And perform is exactly what Sanders has done. Through training camp, the rookie has absolutely torched Cleveland's defense. We're not talking about flashes or lucky throws. We're talking about sustained dominance, leading all Browns quarterbacks in completion percentage, touchdowns, and passer rating. He's looked sharper than Joe Flacco, cleaner than Dylan Gabriel, and more composed than Kenny Pickett. One practice in particular went viral when Sanders went 9 for 9 with 2 touchdowns against a starting defense, leaving veterans shaking their heads like they had just witnessed something special. Normally, this would be the story of a breakout. Normally, a performance like that earns a quarterback first-team reps and a chance to prove himself against the best. But not in Cleveland. Despite outplaying every other quarterback on the roster, Sanders hasn't taken a single snap with the starters. He's buried on the depth chart, forced to run with backups while less effective players stumble through first-team drills. And that's when you realize this isn't about merit. This is about politics. On one side, Andrew Berry sees Sanders as the future of the franchise, the kind of quarterback who could finally stabilize a position that has haunted Cleveland for decades. On the other, Jimmy Haslam doesn't want to admit his GM might have found a star in a place he never believed one existed. By acknowledging the trade rumors, Haslam isn't just testing the market, he's sending a message. This isn't Berry's team. This is his team. And Shedeur Sanders' future will be decided in the owner's office, not on the field. Meanwhile, 1,000 miles south, the New Orleans Saints are watching their season crumble before it even starts. Derek Carr's sudden retirement blindsided the franchise. They had built around him, believed in him, and then overnight he was gone. In a panic, the Saints reached for Tyler Show in the 2nd round of the draft. From the moment Roger Goodell called his name, fans groaned, analysts shook their heads, and the pick was branded a desperation move. Show was never supposed to start day 1. He was supposed to sit, develop, learn. But with Carr gone, he was shoved into the spotlight. And the results have been disastrous. His mechanics are sloppy, his reads are late, and his confidence is crumbling. The low point came during a 2-minute drill in training camp that reporters described as the single worst they had ever seen. Not the kind of headline you want when you're supposed to be the future. Saints fans are panicking. Their offense is stacked with playmakers, but without a quarterback to get them the ball, it's meaningless. The window to compete in the NFC South is wide open, but New Orleans doesn't have a leader under center. And that's where Shedeur Sanders comes in. While Show collapses in New Orleans, Sanders has been flawless in Cleveland. His camp numbers are off the charts. His leadership has veterans buzzing. Former NFL star Asante Samuel has already gone public, saying the Saints should pick up the phone today and make an offer. And with Jimmy Haslam admitting trade talks are real, that window is wide open. But here's the burning question. Why is Cleveland even entertaining this? Why would a franchise with one of the longest histories of quarterback misery even consider trading away the most promising young passer they've seen in years? The answer has nothing to do with performance. It has everything to do with power. When the Browns took Sanders, fans thought the building was united, but insiders knew better. That pick was Andrew Berry's move, pure and simple. Haslam wasn't sold then, and he isn't sold now. For him, Sanders represents leverage, not the future. And by dangling him in trade talks, Haslam reminds everyone who's really in charge. But the irony is impossible to ignore. Sanders has outplayed everyone on the depth chart. Better accuracy than Flacco. Better decision-making than Gabriel. More upside than an injured Pickett. And yet he's the one being shopped? It's football malpractice. It's ego over evidence. And the Saints are ready to capitalize. Let's not forget the draft day nightmare. When Sanders was still sitting on the board, the Saints passed on him multiple times. Instead, they gambled on Show, a pick that already looks like one of the worst decisions in recent franchise history. Now, just months later, the same player they ignored has become the one they desperately need. Imagine the embarrassment in New Orleans if they have to trade away premium draft picks just to fix a mistake they made back in April. Imagine the headlines if Sanders becomes a star in the very stadium that once booed his name being passed over. And on the flip side, imagine the disaster in Cleveland if they let him go. We've seen this story before. The Chargers once drafted Drew Brees, doubted him, and let him walk. He went to New Orleans and became a legend, winning a Super Bowl and rewriting the record books. The same thing could happen here. If the Browns let Sanders slip through their fingers, they might be handing the Saints their next franchise icon. And it wouldn't be the first time Cleveland has fumbled a star. But the wild card in all this is the preseason. If Sanders keeps dominating when the games start, his value skyrockets. Other GMs will come calling. The offers will get bigger. But every highlight he produces also makes it harder for Cleveland to justify moving him. That's the paradox. The better he plays, the more valuable he becomes to both sides. If the Browns keep him and bench him, they risk wasting his prime. If they trade him, they risk watching him become a superstar somewhere else. Either way, this decision could define the franchise for a generation. Sanders wasn't supposed to be an afterthought. He wasn't supposed to sit behind journeymen with weaker arms and shakier confidence. And he definitely wasn't supposed to be trade bait before he even got a chance. Yet here we are. Haslam confirms the rumors. Berry digs in his heels. The locker room whispers grow louder. And across the league, desperate franchises like New Orleans wait for Cleveland to crack. This is bigger than one rookie quarterback. This is about how franchises handle talent, ego, and the politics of power. Will the Browns let merit decide, or will pride bury their future? The Saints are ready. The fan base is starving. The roster is loaded with weapons just waiting for a quarterback to unlock them. Shedeur Sanders isn't just a fix. He's the kind of player who could sell out the Superdome, energize a city, and bring hope back to a franchise on life support. Cleveland has to decide. Do they unleash him, let him compete, and finally solve the quarterback curse that has haunted them for decades? Or do they trade him away, collect picks, and risk watching him hoist a Lombardi somewhere else? History tells us this league doesn't wait for hesitant teams. The opportunities pass, and the regrets last forever. The Browns are on the clock, and the world is watching. But here's the part people don't want to admit. This isn't the first time Jimmy Haslam has put his ego before the future of his franchise. Look back at the long line of quarterbacks the Browns have burned through. Johnny Manziel? Drafted as a flashy ticket seller, while scouts begged the team to pass. Deshaun Watson? A record-breaking contract while ignoring the baggage that came with it. Baker Mayfield? Once the savior, later tossed aside like yesterday's news. Every decision was wrapped in Haslam's fingerprints, not the long-term vision of his football people. And that's why so many insiders believe Shedeur Sanders is doomed to follow the same path. Brilliant potential, smothered by an impatient owner who refuses to let football minds lead. And that's where Andrew Berry comes in. Berry's track record is clear. He believes in smart drafting, patience, and development. This is a GM who rebuilt Cleveland's roster with analytics, scouting, and careful cap management. He's the reason the Browns even sniffed the playoffs in recent years. But even Berry isn't immune to Haslam's shadow. Sources have whispered for months that Berry wanted Shedeur in the draft because he saw a long-game franchise quarterback. Someone who wouldn't start day one, but would grow into the role the way Aaron Rodgers did behind Brett Favre. But Haslam? He didn't want to hear it. To him, Shedeur was a pawn, a trade chip, or maybe even a PR distraction. And the clash between Barry and Haslam isn't just about one rookie. It's about control of the entire franchise. If Barry wins, Shedeur gets his shot. If Haslam wins, Shedeur's gone before Browns fans even see him on Sundays. Now let's rewind for a moment. Why did Shedeur even fall to the 5th round? That's the question fans keep asking, and the answer only makes this story messier. Coming out of Colorado, Shedeur had the stats, the tape, and the swagger. But NFL scouts doubted everything, from his mechanics to his ability to adjust to pro speed. Some whispered that the only reason he was hyped was because of his father, Jason Sanders. Others flat out said he was too much of a brand and not enough of a quarterback. And yet, anyone who actually watched him play saw a kid with poise in the pocket, a laser-quick release, and the same fire that made his dad a Hall of Famer. The 5th round wasn't a fair evaluation. It was a punishment for daring to be different. And now, the Browns are holding on to the league's biggest steal of the draft, only to bury him on the bench. That's not just football politics, that's sabotage. And here's the irony that Saints fans won't let go. New Orleans had multiple chances to draft Shedeur. Round 3, round 4, even round 5. Each time, they passed, convinced that Derek Carr still had gas left in the tank, or that their rookie reach, Tyler Show, could be molded into a starter. But now Carr is gone, Show is struggling, and the Saints are sitting in quarterback hell. The same player they ignored is now the one they're begging to trade for. And that's what makes this story feel like karma. Saints fans are asking themselves, are we about to pay double for the guy we could have had for free? And if you think this is all just media speculation, think again. Around the league, analysts are drawing comparisons to some of the biggest QB mistakes in history. Remember Brett Favre, drafted by Atlanta, traded to Green Bay for almost nothing, and the rest is history. Remember Steve Young, a backup in Tampa Bay, dealt to San Francisco only to become a legend. Even Drew Brees himself, cast off by San Diego, resurrected in New Orleans, and turned into a Super Bowl champion. The NFL has a long history of teams giving up on quarterbacks too soon, only to regret it for decades. And right now, fans are asking, will Shedeur Sanders become the next chapter in that cursed book? The conversation isn't just happening in front offices, it's happening in locker rooms too. Reports claim veterans on the Browns roster have already pulled coaches aside, asking why Shedeur isn't being given a real shot. One unnamed defensive player allegedly said, "We see what's happening in practice. He's the best guy out there." If he was drafted in the 1st round, this wouldn't even be a debate. That kind of statement tells you everything. It's not about performance, it's about perception. Because once the league labels you as a late round pick, you're treated like an underdog no matter how good you are. And Shedeur is living that reality right now. Meanwhile, Saints fans are spiraling. On social media, you see it everywhere. Mock trades, Photoshop edits of Shedeur in a Saints uniform. Even hashtags demanding the front office. Bring Shedeur to the Bayou. Fans believe he's the only way out of the quarterback nightmare. But Browns fans, they're split down the middle. Half of them want Shedeur unleashed in Cleveland, convinced he's the future. The other half fear that Haslam will botch it, and they'd raw